What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cheeky Midweeky, where we are making strength and conditioning not boring anymore, and we do that by highlighting the practitioners that help make this the best field possible. And as you know, we don't only talk to strength coaches. Today's one of those days. We're talking with an athletic trainer because you have been recommended to me from Costa Delegatus, and we talked about this before, but that relationship, athletic trainer and strength coach, Serg, thank you for coming on the show and talking with us about this, because there's a lot of other things that you could be doing. Thank you very much, brother.
Well, thank you so much for having me over. It's a pleasure.
Let's just come out of the gate hot. Like, how can strength coaches and athletic trainers work together best, in your opinion?
Well, right now, obviously, working with military settings, so working with search and rescue helicopter pilots and operators, and privilege of working with that right now, and we're able to kind of work together and try to come up with the best possible program that can be delivered to the military guys that we work with. In my opinion, what's great about being in this particular situation is that we can get together whenever we have a chance, talk about the guys' needs, their requirements that they have to have for their missions, and it's nice to have professionals coming together, being able to approach every person, every situation from a different angle, from their personal experience, background, and kind of like match all together and come up with a better product. I was fortunate enough to work a little bit with Costa and some other strength coaches here on base. And the nice thing about me being able to work with them is I can tell them the issues that my guys have already. I do their physical therapy, I deal with their injuries, existing chronic nature, and I'm able to just tell them exactly what my guys, what the issues they have, what they need to work on. And the strength coaches basically, know what kind of program to create, and they take into consideration the things they need to watch out for. And obviously, the guy is coming off some recent back injury, probably doing some crazy heavy deadlifts is not going to work for him in the beginning. When we try to get him back in shape to do. So that interaction with the strength coaches,
one of the questions
with them.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, you can keep going with it. Sorry.
Okay, got it. Yeah, basically just keeping the channels of communication open between the guys. Have approach it much easier. And the fact that we're able to do that is just huge, and it makes a big difference for us and how we approach everything here.
So the question that I had was, the fact that it's in the military and it is just heightened everything, right? And, working in college football, working in rugby, working in baseball, like the stakes are high, but the stakes are even higher in the military. And you're dealing with even more alphas. Like, the reason I'm building all of this up is to say, like, it's easy to let egos in, or it could be, not that it is, but it could be easy for egos to creep in. How do you recommend people to not let that happen? For anybody that's listening in the military world, but even those in college and high school and professional that want to think it's all about them, but how do they subdue their ego to be able to, meet the demands of where you're at right now?
I think the most important part about that is that you can't come into this world and pretend that you're all that you have all the knowledge, that you have all the experience. In many cases, that's the case. You do have it, right? But you can't just come out there and be like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to change everything around, make things happen, the way I feel it should be working. You got to get to know the people. You have to, kind of start off easy. Don't step on anybody's toes, introduce yourself to everybody and their mother, as they say it. So everybody knows who you are, chit chat with these guys, find out what they like, what they don't like, what they're trying to do, what are their needs, what are their goals, what kind of positions they work in, what kind of issues they have, and so once you get to know these guys, start kind of slowly suggesting things you're doing. strength coach or with an athletic trainer if they don't want to. Some of them will tell them straight up, you have to do this, and that's it. However, not everybody works that way. So you really have to kind of become their friend in the first place. And once you do that, then you're able to start showing off your skill sets, and you start, coming at things that will help them, right away, and try to turn this into more like a long-term care for themselves, for their body, and so on. And I think that's the main, I think that's the best way of approaching this particular, work setting. Just learn first, observe, and later on start, showing what you can do without overwhelming them in the process, because they're always short on time. So you have to kind of make things a little bit faster situation.
You talked about becoming their friend. What are some of your best practices that you would recommend to coaches? Because again, it doesn't matter. Athletic trainer, strength coach, like samesies. What are some of your best strategies that you recommend to people that you have found to be successful in building those friendships, but also respecting the fact of, not getting too close? Like, how do you respect that too?
I mean, it's difficult. You got I can't get caught up in that. That just would not be good. Professionally, that would not look good. So my approach is always trying to be involved somehow where it's physical. So I try to be physical myself. So I do a lot of sports. I'll do a lot of activities, and I'm a little bit older than most of the guys I work with. And when they see me doing that stuff at my age and not allowing my age to sit down, they kind of get motivated too. I try to make it somewhat of a little competition once in a while. I'll try to get them involved, in who's going to lose the most body fat in 5 to 6 months, and some kind of, goal to reach that. I try to organize outdoorsy stuff, and I'm fortunate enough that, being overseas in the beautiful country of Italy, there's a lot of opportunities here that you can do those things, whether it's hiking, kayaking.
Keeping your certification is essential to staying hired as a strength and conditioning coach. Both of our long form courses, Fundamentals 1 and Fundamentals 2, offer CEUs to the NSCA, the NCSF, as well as the ASCA professional development points. Click the link down below to learn more about our education courses, which are both over 20 hours long and allow you to learn from some of the best practitioners in the field of strength and conditioning.
I think the opportunity that we have being overseas in other countries is just learning, different things. Obviously, meeting new people, learning new cultures, and being, surrounded by all that. I feel like it's a great experience, especially for younger professionals that maybe haven't been traveling a lot or haven't had an opportunity to leave their hometown or home state. I think it's a great opportunity to try that and just see how it is. Not everybody's going to like it, obviously. Some people are more connected with their friends and family, so it might be a bit harder for them to do that. But I really have not seen or heard of anybody that took some kind of job that was outside of the country in another location and that was unsatisfied with it. I mean, it's just a completely different lifestyle. You're learning to appreciate different things that you have back home that you obviously miss here, but then you also learn that you can live without it and you can adapt and you can overcome to those things. And then you obviously, you get to learn new things that, the different countries have to offer, different people have to offer. And especially for us, for, healthcare professionals, sports conditioning, coaches or athletic trainers or physical therapists, we get to explore and experience different ways of approaching things and doing things that we do back in the States. Coming here into Europe, I was exposed to the different professionals and I see how they work here, how they approach the problems. And in many cases, it's totally different than what we do. So you can kind of ask the questions, and learn something new. And if this works for you, guess what? You just add another, skill to your little toolbox, and then you just take it with you wherever you go. Some things might not work. Well, then you just don't do it, obviously. But I think just the fact that you can explore those new things, it definitely, makes you a better professional and it makes you a better human being. And I think everybody, when they have an opportunity, they should take a job that requires them to travel somewhere outside of their state or even a country.
What has been some of the best modalities that you have learned from all the different people? Like something that was like, ooh, big aha moment for you that you had never considered doing, but now you learned it and you're like, this has been really key?
Well, for me, what opened my eyes here is that I'm fortunate enough to work with a local sports massage therapist that comes to our squadron on a weekly basis and works with our guys. And what I really loved about him is the fact that he's not just a sports massage therapist. He has a background, sports medicine, in coaching, in strength training, and at the same time, he's also, does manipulations and some very, low type chiropractic movements that he's certified to do. So, before when I worked with certain sports massage therapists, back in the States, that's all they did. Just they massaged you, maybe stretch you a little bit. That was the extent of their involvement when it came to that kind of type of care. But with this guy, I have the opportunity to talk with him, tell him what my guys' issues are, what I've been working on, what's wrong with them, what's going on, and he'll design his session based off what I tell him, and he's very knowledgeable about that. He'll be able to do manipulations if he has to. He'll do the massage therapy. He'll use very specific massage equipment that will generate heat and vibration at the same time as he's massaging. So that in itself made me already open to a different approach when it comes to massage, and I really try to utilize that as a adjunct to everything I do, whether, when I work with these guys. So I'll do the rehab, I'll do the, exercise, I'll do the stretches. I'll have one of the strength coaches, come up with a strength plan where they can keep improving without hurting themselves. And then on top of that, we'll have this sports massage therapist that is able to do little manipulations as well. And it's been working great. I mean, that combination right there, hasn't really failed me yet when it comes to, providing good quality healthcare to these guys.
Speaking of providing quality care, what is something that strength coaches don't know about athletic trainers that is one of the most difficult parts of your job?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, out here it's been kind of nice because all the coaches that I've been working with, they know exactly what an athletic trainer does and what they can do, because they were exposed to them at some point or another. And the fact that we're able to meet up and talk about things and kind of get together with each other, it really makes my job much easier here. Because when I say something is wrong with a guy, I tell him exactly what is wrong, and the strength coach that I work here with doesn't really argue about it. They just apply this to their strength program. They avoid things that hurt them, and we never have any issues. But in the past, I've seen it's not too many situations. I think it's got much better over the years. But sometimes the strength coaches will kind of do too much. When you tell them, hey, listen, this guy just got off an injury, he's not there yet, can we just avoid certain things, or maybe just ease him back into it. I know he's a star player or whatever the case is, but we need to hold back a little bit before he gets out there because he's going to get re-injured. And sometimes when somebody is just not paying attention to that, incidents happen, and they still do, obviously. You can't protect everybody all the time. There is little incidents that will occur and little setbacks, but I think that it's very important that the strength coaches that we work with, they kind of listen to what we say when it comes to the injury aspects, because sometimes you got to take it easy. You just have to take it easy. You have to avoid certain things and do everything else that you can, work around the injury, make everything else stronger. And with time, it's going to catch up, and you just have to pay attention to those time frames and those exact, healing weeks or days, whatever the case is. And that's why I think, the strength coaches and athletic trainers really have to work together closely when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because if they don't, that's when the little, mistakes happen. Somebody pushes somebody too hard and things happen.
So there's been this new popularity of kind of a rehab coordinator, I believe is the role, where it's, I don't know if they're either employed as a strength coach or they're employed as an athletic trainer, but they're in charge of all of the rehab. And typically what I have seen is it's a strength coach and they're the rehab coordinator. And to me, it seems like, is that really necessary if there's just really good collaboration and communication between the athletic trainer and the strength coach, where it's, hey, I understand your progressions and your regressions. You understand mine. We both understand tissue healing. is it messy to just add another person in the kitchen, right? Another cook to the kitchen, to the recipe, instead of just having these two professionals be professionals that work together?
Yeah, I never had an opportunity to work in that kind of setting where there was a rehab coordinator, overlooking everything. I think that that's probably something that might work more like in a clinic setting. Maybe that's how they use them, but I'm not 100% sure. So don't quote me on that. However, I feel that's an overkill. I mean, I feel that if you have a team that's responsible for working with somebody, whether it's an individual or a group of people, and there's a communication between them, that really, like, that is just an excessive person. I feel like that person is not needed in the mix. If you have a strength coach that listens to athletic trainer or a physical therapist or PT assistant, whoever it is that deals with the injuries, and vice versa, the athletic trainer or the PT is listening to the strength coach when it comes to the programs that they're designing, and there's a communication there, I think it's just not necessary to get another person involved. The other person that obviously should be in this mix is the primary, physician that's, signing off on the person and approves them to return to whatever activity they're doing, whether it's, sports or work related stuff. So that's the person that's going to have the final say so. And if anything, that should be the person that kind of, derogates this whole entire operation between the strength coach, athletic trainer, the sports massage therapist, nutritionist, mental coach, whoever else is involved with that. That should be the person that kind of coordinates it if it needs to be done. But I think with good strength coaches, good athletic trainers, I don't think it's necessary. At least I have not been exposed to it where I would see the benefit of it.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr has been my online software platform choice since 2019. Been using it at Towson, using it at Goldfinch, and use it with my online remote clients. You can learn more about them in the link down below. TeamBuildr is also part owner in the Plyomat, which will allow you to get quick, valid, and reliable jump data, jump height, ground contact time, and reactive strength index in just seconds. They are part owner of Plyomat, so you can check them out in the link down below as well. It's interesting you said that about the primary care physician, because to me, I guess I never realized how difficult it is to be that person, because they're signing off on something that they probably didn't even actually have much to actually do in the weeds with. They're relying on you and communicating with you, the head athletic trainer, who's talking to them about it, but they're the one that ultimately would have any litigation if something goes wrong, correct?
That's correct. So I think in that situation, those doctors that sign off on those notes have to have trust in the person they work with. So if they don't have that, they'll probably question everything, and rightfully so. I mean, it's your license on the line, so you should feel comfortable signing off on certain notes coming on your desk, knowing that this person is doing a good job and that they know what they're doing. So I think also in military setting, I think one of the things I notice with these jobs is that they do ask for athletic trainers and physical therapists to have a pretty decent experience coming into this work setting. They don't really want anybody fresh out of school that just graduated and barely started working in this field, because there's too many chances of something wrong going on and happening. So most of the jobs will require at least 3 to 5 years of experience, and it's not just your typical high school or Division III college. They want somebody who's been working with either professional athletes or Division I athletes or military guys already. So they want somebody who's seen it already, and most of these jobs will ask for it. And if you don't have it, it might be very, very difficult to get into this field if you don't have that kind of experience to back up your skill sets and the experience that you've gained.
How is the high performance model developing within the tactical world?
Well, here, at least in in the place that I'm at, over the years that I've been here, I've been working here for about 4 years now. I've seen positive changes when it comes to this. It's just constantly keep adding positions. They're trying to expand what they offer. They're adding more strength coaches. They're adding more physical therapists, more athletic trainers, more massage therapists. They're constantly adding things to improve what they've started. And I mean, this process has been going on for a while. I mean, I think, the athletic trainers were kind of initiated into the military setting back in 1990s at the end of it, by the Marine Corps and the Navy. And that's how it kind of like started. They copied this process of using athletic trainers, from professional sports, and they just basically decided to put them in a military setting and see how it goes, and they tested it for a bunch of years. And then once they realized this actually makes a big difference for them, they started including more and more healthcare professionals in a military setting to keep improving it. And from what I saw, it's growing nonstop. There's always adding something new, and as long as there's benefit to it, which I'm sure there always will be, because with this particular setting, there's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be guys that get banged up, hurt, whether it's on a job or on a mission. We need that support, and if we want to keep them healthy, keep them operating for longer periods of time, and actually do what they're supposed to do, we have to take care of them. It's just like in a college setting or professional sports. If you don't have these professionals, you're not going to have a great team that's going to keep winning championships for you. They're going to fall apart, and that will be the end of it.
One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking there is the reference to the word human weapon system. And that is something that Dr. Chris Myers had talked about, and he wrote that book. And then it was something that I also saw at the CSCCA conference in May of 2024, earlier this year. What does that term, human weapon system, mean to you when you hear that as an athletic trainer working in the tactical world?
Well, that's definitely a term that was very new to me when I got this job. When I saw the application for this position, it stated exactly that it's a human weapon system optimization that they're trying to create. And I was just like, what the hell are they talking about? I obviously automatically started thinking about tanks, machine guns, all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't know how that works with me. But then once I started, working in this job, I realized exactly what they're talking about, and obviously, in today's society, with the technology changes, we're relying a little bit less on people that we used to. We have all these crazy AI advances, all these drones that we do. But in the end, you still gonna have to have people to operate that stuff. You still have to have a brain behind it that's gonna, decide what's gonna happen. So we can't just leave that all up to the machines. So by working on our military members that do these jobs, whether they're sitting behind a computer, whether they're driving a truck, flying a plane, or flying a drone, for all that matters, they have to be in their best possible shape mentally, physically, and emotionally. And if we can't get those three things together, there's going to be issues happening, and the missions is not going to get accomplished properly, and there's going to be mistakes. So by doing this initiative where it's this human optimization weapon system, we look at our military guys as part of this big picture. They're part of this huge machine that keeps on rolling, and in many cases, unfortunately, it ends up being in situations where there's combat, where there's people dying and depending on each other, and there can be mistakes there, because if there's a mistake there's somebody's not coming back. And we have to do everything we can to make this better. So whether it's by strength training somebody, making them mentally and physically tough and resilient to these hardships that they have to go through, if we do not do those things correctly, somebody's not going to come back. And there's no more important than having somebody come back from these missions in one piece and being able to function for many, many more years to come.
That's actually the part you talked about there, people not coming back. And I'm not asking you at all to talk about specifics. This is all high level. I personally have worked in athletic teams where two players have taken their own lives. One where I was still working on the team, and one where an after the fact. And I'm bringing this up because it was very difficult in a world where typically everybody does come home. You lose a game, it's not war. But moving on from a death was not easy in that situation. From a high level, for any of our listeners that do work in the tactical setting, whether it be fire, police, military, the human weapon system, have you experienced that? And then what are some things that you've seen for those teams that have been able to move forward from it?
While I was here, there's obviously past incidents that occurred in the military settings where these guys, pretty much all these guys that work with me, they had somebody that they lost. You know, one of their friends during a mission or some kind of operation. So a lot of these guys, unfortunately, had to deal with this, where one of their own, was taken away early, whether it was by a training incident or actual mission or by suicide or even by something like COVID. All those things happened. And what I've noticed, what has these guys, recover from this kind of terrible loss, and how they deal with it is by being there for each other and being like a one big family. The support is great. They support each other when they can. uh, Obviously they have a lot of professional specialists here on base that can talk to them about things like that, psychologists, mental coaches, things of that nature, and that's always available to them. However, what really works for them is the fact that they're able to get together, talk about it, and they're able to do something about this. They have a great uh, I wouldn't call this a routine, but they have this great idea of always remember these people that are no longer with us anymore. They come up with some kind of yearly event where they get together and they remember this person, whether it's by doing some kind of run, whether it's by doing some kind of hiking around the base, or going in the woods, climbing a mountain, or running some kind of exercise routine, or doing something along those lines. They organize it on a yearly basis. They create charities that collect money in the name of that person, and later on, that money is being provided, whether it's to the family members of the person that was lost, or to some kind of different venture that's trying to make a life better for future generations. And the fact that they do that, that they come together one big family, I think that's how they deal with the loss, and that's how they're able to move on. That's how they're able to continue doing what they're doing, knowing that there will be more people that will probably be lost along the way, because with this particular job setting, there's no guarantee you're gonna come back home, no matter how hard you train, how knowledgeable you are. Just things will happen, and you have to be prepared for that. And they're aware of it. They're aware of it. They sign up for it and they live their lifestyle.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Hawkin Dynamics. I've had Hawkin Dynamics for multiple years, dating back to my time at Towson, and still utilize them here at Goldfinch when I'm training athletes in Iowa. Hawkin Dynamics makes it simple to be able to get input to find out what's going on underneath the hood with your athletes. Whether it's lower body assessment, upper body assessments, you want reliable data to find out how the athlete is putting force into the ground, so you can be able to accurately return an athlete from an injury, and you can also find out how the athlete is producing force to check how your training is working. Check out Hawkin Dynamics in the link down below. Yeah, I mean, that is a mentally tough group of people. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because anybody in sport nowadays, they typically steal and borrow from the military to make people more mentally tough. What have been things that common traits of the most mentally tough people that you've worked with? Again, respecting everybody's privacy and just like high level, like, hey, these are some kind of character traits that I've seen of successful people and abilities for them to push through and do difficult things. Like, what does it look like to you? And then how do you recommend our listeners go about developing those traits?
I think what I noticed that works pretty good is that having a routine helps. The guys that do the best here, and that they're able to deal with their inner demons, you could say, and past loss. Those are the guys that are the most structured. They have a great workout routine. They train hard. They do physical stuff on the weekends. They try to have a diet that's on point, and they always try to educate themselves and better themselves. Those are the guys that seem to have their shit together. And obviously, you'll never know 100%, but at least they appear to be doing well when they do this stuff. The ones that don't do well is the ones that are inactive. They're not. They don't have any passions. They don't have any kind of hobbies that they can latch onto. And those are usually the guys that have the most issues, I noticed. So I think this applies to pretty much to everything in our life. If you're trying to be healthy and you're somewhat of like an exercise nut, and you work out all the time, or you do something physical and you have a good diet, and you constantly learning something new and keeping your mind occupied, whether it's by studying, reading, learning new things, I think your chances of moving on and being basically stronger and mentally are much higher than somebody who doesn't get involved with those kind of things or doesn't have a good support network. So their friendships are also another big one here. I notice the guys that have a lot of friends or able to spend time outside of work with some other people, not necessarily same guys from the unit, but other guys, they do much better than the introverts that don't have too many friends, that they just kind of go home and watch TV or stay away from people. Those guys usually do a little bit worse when it comes to dealing with mental issues.
How do you then recommend any of our listeners that are working in sport, not in the military, how can they borrow strategies and tactics, but do it authentically and do it in a good way rather than bastardized? Like I've seen, we put out a video where the University of Colorado, the football team, they were doing Navy SEAL training. And it's like, people talk about, well, it helps build resilience, it helps build toughness and team camaraderie. But if it's only a one-off, in my opinion, it doesn't actually build resiliency and toughness when it's just truly a one-time thing. Because it's like, oh, well, we just got to get through, do this one time, and it's never really applicable again. Like, it's just so random that there's not enough time for it to stick. From somebody that's in it, does what I'm saying make sense, or am I missing the boat? Because I don't want to miss the boat. I want to make sure that I'm helping coaches out and helping make athletes' lives better and strength and conditioning better.
Yeah, I mean, the concept of getting people together and working as a team on some kind of problem or a project is always going to be a great idea to get that camaraderie established and that support network. The problem is, like you said, doing it once off, it's not going to change anything. For that to really, take an effect and make a difference, it has to become a habit. It's just like, you brushing your teeth once and then not doing it for a month, you're not improving anything, right? Same with this particular setting, right? You have to keep doing those things. So maybe doing, Navy SEAL training every week is, maybe not very realistic, because then you start having, other issues that you're gonna have to deal with. But using things that worked there and implementing them in your routine is definitely a very beneficial. Whether it is getting together once a week with the whole team or whoever it is that needs to, develop this, this camaraderie and just hanging out, doing something productive, whether it's freaking go out and, clean up some garbage from a park and, give back to your community, or doing a group trip where you can talk about issues, you can talk about emotions, listen, we as guys, and I'm going to say as guys now, obviously some ladies have the same problem, but we as guys don't like to talk about our feelings. Let's be honest, right? We're been, taught from being the smallest kid that you swallow your feelings, you go lift heavier weights, and you move on. That's obviously not the case. That doesn't work anymore. We know we do have to talk about feelings, and we have to get comfortable doing that. We have to be able to talk about our emotions, our feelings, things that bother us, and by doing that, we're actually going to be healthier and better. I mean, it's. I don't have the statistics, so I'm not going to throw any numbers out there, but I think that's why women, for most part, do so much better when it comes to mental issues, because they talk their issues out with their friends. They talk about it. They figure it out by talking, right? Us guys, we're like, oh, I'll just suck it up, be a tough guy. That doesn't work. You have to talk those things out. There's no other way around it. So, I mean, I think those are the big things. I think
Anybody that's been listening to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, keep going. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, just establishing that, that family structure, that deep bond with each other, I think is the key to a lot of those problems. Being able to depend on your teammates, being able to depend on your coaching staff, being able to walk up to, your strength trainer and coach or athletic trainer and talk about things that bother you, because they might not have the answer, but just, they'll listen. And if they listen and they're listening, and they pay attention to you, that makes a huge difference for these guys. And it's anywhere, whether it's military, whether it's, civilian sector, just being able to being noticed and heard makes a big difference, and that can help you in long time.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Vitruve VBT. With Vitruve, you can accurately measure what speeds your athletes are moving the bar. No longer do you have to program simply based on sets and reps. You can program for your more mature athletes based on the velocities that they are hitting. You can accurately measure at a great price with Vitruve, and you can have this integrate with your TeamBuildr, making it simple so you no longer have to write down the recorded reps from other devices. Everything in one place with Vitruve VBT. Check them out in the link down below. Anybody that's been listening to us talk this long, they clearly know that you're knowledgeable and passionate about what you do. Talk about your genesis of how you got into athletic training, your background, like all those things, so that way they can, understand you a little bit more.
Well, to make the long story short, I always liked being active, and I did serve in the Marine Corps right after high school. So being in the Marine Corps and being a grunt, typical machine gunner, running through the jungle with a heavy machine gun, shooting things up and blowing them up. Whenever I left, I felt that office job is not a thing for me. I did not see myself sitting behind a desk, working on a computer. So I decided to do something active, which was, something physical. So I became a personal trainer first, work as that for a few years, and then I became exposed to athletic trainers, actually in the Marine Corps, that they just initiated those programs back then. And I noticed that these guys are pretty knowledgeable when it comes to injury rehabilitation, and they had a pretty nice cushioning job back then. They saw 2-3 people a day, do a little treatment with them and send them off to their strength coaches, to work on them. So I was like, wow, this is perfect. I want that. And that's how I kind of got interested in it. However, once I finished school and all my training and everything, I ended up being trapped in a collegiate setting. So I worked in college sports for many years. So I haven't went back into a military setting like I originally planned. This happened obviously more recently. I finally, ended up making that switch again, and ended up working in the military. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very happy for doing it. It makes me appreciate my job. I wake up, in the morning wanting to go to work. I'm not really hating anything out here. So I think it was a good switch for me, and it was a great decision that I made, by coming back to the military that I started off from. It also helps me understanding these guys a little bit more, because I was doing that before. I was during a time where those things were not available to us. So I remember, getting hurt and not having anybody that can help me with it. Just take a bunch of Motrin and painkillers and, move on. That was the treatment back in the day. Now it's a little bit more advanced, and I'm glad that I'm part of that, process of making somebody better, fitter, healthier, and educating them at the same time.
Yeah, that's super cool. Anybody that's been listening to our show lately, they know that we've been diving down the tactical rabbit hole that Costa had started me down. Those that are interested in getting into it, whether it be into the military, police, firefighter, what are things that you suggest to be able to break down the barriers to get in?
That's a great question, and I think the main thing is trying to, volunteer when you can, when you don't have the experience. Because in the beginning, you have to learn those things. So whether you can volunteer for free or, for little pay, try to get as much experience as you can. Because in this particular, sector that deals with law enforcement, military setting, special operations, you have to bring knowledge and experience to the table. They don't really like to bring new people that haven't experienced those things. So, you have to show them that you know what you're doing and you're willing to learn. So in the beginning, it's going to be hard. You're going to have to work in some kind of different settings, maybe start, in professional sports or higher division college setting, do that for a few years, get some experience, make some mistakes. That's probably the best time to make those those mistakes before you make it into the military setting. Once you have that experience, then you can start looking at jobs that deal with military, police force. You're able to bring something to the table and think outside the box. I think that's the main one. Don't just base your background on just strength training or rehabilitation, whatever your cup of coffee is, but like try to come up with something else on top of that. Try to bring something that's going to make you more valuable to them, and don't be afraid to think outside of the box. I think that's the main one. If you can come up something different, something new, you're most likely, you're going to be the person that they're going to look for, and they're going to hire you. And once that happens, you get experience year by year by just being in this position. So like, even if I ever stop working in this field, I think the things that I've done, I've seen and learned here, they'll open a lot of doors for me. And I don't think I would ever have a problem, switching back to college setting, professional sports, or entertainment, or anything like that, because it's a military background that opens up a lot of doors for you in whatever sector of work you're looking for. It's always going to open something for you.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Sleep Me. Sleep Me are the makers of the Chili Pad, which has been my bed cooling device since 2020. Chili Pad will allow you to sleep and not wake up hot anymore. This was something that I had to worry about. I used to have the air conditioning down way too low. Now, I don't have to have the air conditioning as low because my Chili Pad, my Dock Pro, keeps my bed cold at night. Check out Sleep Me, check out the Chili Pad, check out the Dock Pro in the link down below.
How do you do what you said? I love what you just said there about like finding a unique way to solve a problem to help people show that you really care and you're knowledgeable. How do you handle that duality with what Costa has said and what Connor Freeland has said on the episode this week, where it's like, at first you really just have to, I think they both said, and Dr. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name now, but no, Chris Myers, Dr. Chris Myers was saying like, shut up, be quiet and listen. And like the 30, 60, 90 rule that Costa was like, hey, you gotta be quiet at first, then you can have an opinion. And then you can have your opinion about something if somebody asks you, and then you're finally allowed to have an opinion. Like, so how do you handle that dichotomy and that balance, especially when you care and you want to help these people out?
Yes, that's a great advice, and I think it applies to pretty much everything. Like I said, you might know a lot coming to a new place of work or profession, but sometimes you just have to sit back and like you said, listen, learn, see what it's all about, pick the things that work, pick the things that don't work, then formalize your plan of attack, and then just come up with answers. But it is a delicate balance. I think it's being able to read people is very important. Being able to see people's personalities, how they react to different things is, I think, the key to being able to approach them. You're going to have some guys or gals that just think they know it all, and they don't really want your help. They feel they got it. They know better. They read a lot of magazines, watch a bunch of TV shows, read books, so they think they know what they're doing. And that's great. There's nothing, wrong with that they're so knowledgeable, or they feel that they're so knowledgeable. But you have to be able to approach them in a way where you're, not threatening their ego, because everybody has one. And, you have to be able to show them something for it, So start softly, like just, don't push your luck too much, start with little things, I have guys that, work out all the time, that they're very physically fit, they're very knowledgeable. They know their body. They're just like a good athlete is aware of their body. They know when there's something is wrong with it, and then most of the time they can't even tell you what is wrong with them. So it makes things easy, but at the same time, you have to come up with something that's gonna make them feel better. So whether it's one stretch that they never done, or whether it's one exercise they never done, just show it to them and be like, hey, just do this one thing, do it often, and then tell me how you feel. Don't throw a whole huge list of things for them to do, because they're never going to do it. And I noticed that I learned that the hard way. I always tried to be an overachiever, so I would give them a million things to do. Guess what? They never done any of that stuff because I just threw too many things. But when I gave them one little thing, one advice, however stupid it was, and they actually saw that it worked, automatically they became believers. And that's when they came back for more. And that's when I was able to add more stuff. That's when I was able to change their outlook at things and approach things a little bit differently. My biggest issue with these guys is that they don't want to stretch and do post-workout routine and care for their bodies. That is the biggest issue. They warm up good, they'll train hard, and they'll go home. And I'm like, whoa, this is something we need to work on, So, but once again, I do it slowly. I don't throw too many things at them at the same time.
You having the military background, does that give you more buy-in, almost like a sport coach or a strength coach that played the sport? And I ask this because, we have listeners that have transitioned from college or professional into the tactical. Does it matter? Like, is it a quote unquote deal breaker? Does it really help? Does it hurt? Like, what have you found in your own experience and from other people within the tactical community?
I'm one of those people that doesn't really talk about my military career when I'm at work. So most of the guys that I work with don't even know that I served. If it ever comes out, in some kind of conversation or somebody says something, they usually like, "Oh shit, we didn't know that," and that's when the jokes start. That's when they're like, start ragging at me, you're a Marine, you used to eat crayons, that kind of stuff, and then I make fun of them, telling them how weak they are, and that their life is just, a Hilton hotel with a, cigar and a whiskey at the table side, so it becomes more fun that way. However, I think it does help to an extent because they know that I can relate to them. And that way, when they know my background, they kind of respect certain things that I say about their life.
Taking a quick break from the show to talk to you about one of our sponsors, Powerlift. Powerlift is located here in Iowa in the United States of America. I've utilized them back in 2011 when I had them at Harvard. I also had them at the University of Maryland, and then finally when I was at the University of Iowa. Their equipment is strong, it is durable, it is dependable. It's also customizable based upon whatever your needs are at your school. Check out Powerlift at the link down below.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.